every country has a story. Some stories are whispered, some are forgotten, and a few are impossible to ignore. India's story is one of them. Once seen as a land of mysticism and poverty, today it is spoken of in boardrooms, in parliaments, and even in war rooms. The world doesn't just look at India anymore, it looks up to India, and sometimes it looks over its shoulder in caution. Respect and fear, two very different emotions, yet India has managed to command both. And to understand why, we need to look at not just India's rise in power, but the spirit that fuels it. India's journey to becoming an economic powerhouse is nothing short of remarkable. Over the past few decades, the country has transitioned from being perceived as a largely agrarian and developing nation to one of the fastest growing economies in the world. This transformation has drawn the attention of global powers, investors, and policymakers who now recognize India not just as a participant in the global economy, but as a driver of it. The world respects India's economic growth because it represents resilience, innovation, and ambition on an extraordinary scale. One of the most striking features of India's economic rise is the sheer size of its market. With a population of over 1.4 billion people, India is both a massive consumer base and a rich source of talent. Multinational corporations see India as a land of opportunity, where demand for goods and services is continuously expanding. From smartphones to automobiles to financial services, companies are racing to establish themselves in the Indian market. This demand not only boosts domestic growth, but also influences global business strategies, making India a central player in shaping the future of commerce. At the same time, India's workforce has become a defining factor in its economic strength. The country boasts one of the youngest populations in the world, with a majority of its citizens under the age of 35. This demographic advantage provides India with a dynamic labor force that fuels industries such as technology, manufacturing, and services. The IT sector, in particular, has played a crucial role in putting India on the global economic map. Cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Pune are known worldwide as hubs of innovation and digital growth. It challenges the dominance of established economic powers. For example, India's increasing influence in global supply chains and its emergence as a major voice in trade negotiations create shifts that other nations must adjust to. The fear lies in the fact that India's momentum could reshape economic balances, pushing traditional powers to reconsider their strategies. Moreover, India has shown resilience in the face of challenges. Whether it is recovering from global recessions, adapting during the pandemic, or addressing internal hurdles like poverty and inequality, the country has consistently demonstrated its ability to bounce back stronger. This adaptability signals to the world that India's growth is not a temporary surge, but a sustained movement. In essence, India is respected for the opportunities it creates and feared for the disruptions it can bring. Its economic rise is not just about numbers on a chart. It is about the collective energy of a nation determined to claim its place at the forefront of global progress. India's military strength is one of the most important reasons why the world not only respects the country, but also approaches it with caution. As a nation with a turbulent neighborhood and a long history of conflicts, India has steadily built one of the largest and most capable armed forces in the world. Its military is not just about numbers. It represents technological advancement, strategic foresight, and a clear demonstration of national resolve. The world understands that India is not a country that can be ignored when it comes to matters of security and defense. India's armed forces are among the largest in terms of manpower, comprising millions of active and reserve personnel. This scale alone gives the country a unique advantage, ensuring that it can defend its borders while also participating in international peacekeeping operations. However, sheer size is not the only factor that makes India's military formidable. Over the years, the country has invested heavily in modernization. equipping its forces with advanced fighter jets, submarines, drones, missile defense systems, and indigenous technologies that reduce dependency on foreign powers. This mix of tradition and modern innovation creates a force that is both vast and efficient. Perhaps the most significant aspect of India's defense capability is its nuclear status. As one of the few recognized nuclear powers in the world, India possesses a credible deterrent that demands respect from allies and adversaries alike. The doctrine of no first use signals India's commitment to peace and restraint, but the very presence of such weapons means that no nation can afford to underestimate its strength. Nuclear capability shifts India's position on the global chessboard from a regional player to a nation whose decisions can impact the balance of power worldwide. India's military reputation is also shaped by its active role in securing its borders and tackling internal threats. The challenges posed by terrorism, insurgencies, and cross-border conflicts have forced the armed forces to develop resilience and adaptability. From the icy heights of the Himalayas to the waters of the Indian Ocean, India's defense forces operate across some of the most difficult terrains in the world. Their ability to handle such diverse challenges enhances the perception of India as a country with unmatched strategic depth. The respect India receives for its military is not solely based on power projection, but also on discipline and professionalism. Indian peacekeepers have served in numerous United Nations missions, earning admiration for their dedication to global stability. This balance between strength and responsibility paints India as a nation that wields its power wisely, yet this very strength also creates fear among rivals, particularly in the region. Countries that have disputes with India, whether territorial or political, are aware that provoking such a force could lead to serious consequences. Moreover, India's growing partnerships in defense, such as collaborations with the United States, France, Israel, and Russia, amplify its influence even further. By blending indigenous development with global cooperation, India has built a defense network that enhances both its credibility and deterrence. This combination of self-reliance and international support adds layers to its strategic weight. Ultimately, the world respects India's military for its scale, modernization, and professionalism, while also fearing the power it holds as a nuclear-armed democracy with a clear commitment to defending its sovereignty. It is this balance of restraint and readiness that makes India's military strength a central reason why the global community cannot afford to ignore the nation. India's progress in technology and space exploration has become one of the most striking symbols of its rise on the world stage. What makes this progress remarkable is not just the achievements themselves, but the way India has accomplished them, often with limited resources, immense creativity, and an unshakable belief in its own capabilities. Today, when the world speaks of global innovation and future advancements, India's name is no longer an afterthought. It is at the center of the conversation. This blend of respect and a degree of apprehension comes from the fact that India is proving it can compete with, and sometimes even outpace, long established powers. The information technology revolution was perhaps the first step in establishing India's reputation as a global leader in modern industries. Over the last 3 decades, Indian talent has transformed global business, especially in areas like software development, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and data analysis. Major multinational corporations have built their technology hubs in India, relying on the country's skilled workforce to power their operations. Beyond this, Indian startups have risen to prominence, producing unicorns that shape industries ranging from digital payments to healthcare innovation. The rise of platforms such as UPI has even inspired other nations to study India's models of digital governance and financial inclusion. This success demonstrates that India's technological leadership is not confined to theory. It is changing the daily lives of people around the world. While the IT sector put India firmly on the map, its ventures into space exploration have elevated its global standing to new heights. The Indian Space Research Organization, better known as ISRO, has become a source of immense national pride and international admiration. Achievements such as the Mars Orbiter mission, which succeeded on its very first attempt at a fraction of the cost of similar Western missions, left the world astonished. More recently, India's Chandrayaan-3 mission made history by achieving a soft landing near the lunar South Pole, a feat no other country had managed before. These accomplishments prove that India does not simply follow in the footsteps of others. It forges its own path with unique solutions, efficiency, and determination. The respect for India's space program also carries an element of caution. A country capable of sending satellites, interplanetary probes, and lunar landers into space is also capable of leveraging that knowledge for defense purposes, such as satellite communication and surveillance. India has already demonstrated its ability to conduct anti-satellite tests, signaling to the world that its space capabilities are not just scientific, but also strategic. In an era where space is increasingly seen as the next frontier of security and power, this aspect of India's growth commands both admiration and wariness. At the heart of India's technological and space success is its human resource. Engineers, scientists, innovators, and entrepreneurs whose creativity and persistence defy limitations. Unlike many nations that depend heavily on external support, India has cultivated a culture of self-reliance, producing indigenous solutions for global challenges. From affordable vaccines to low-cost space missions, India shows the world that innovation is not limited by budget but powered by vision. In the larger picture, India's rise in technology and space sends a clear message. It is no longer a country simply catching up, but one capable of setting global benchmarks. This dual identity of a nation admired for its ingenuity and respected for its strategic potential explains why India's leadership in these fields is met with both applause and careful observation by the rest of the world. India's democratic influence is one of the most defining aspects of its global reputation. As the world's largest democracy, with over 900 million eligible voters, India is not only admired for the scale of its democratic exercise, but also for the endurance of its system. At a time when many nations are experiencing political instability, authoritarian tendencies, or deep social divides, India's commitment to democracy stands out as both remarkable and instructive. The respect it commands stems from its ability to sustain a diverse, complex, and often challenging society under the framework of democratic governance. At the same time, this democratic strength also makes India a powerful voice that cannot be ignored in global forums. The scale of India's elections alone is a spectacle that attracts worldwide attention. Conducting free and fair elections across thousands of towns, villages, and remote regions requires a logistical effort unmatched by any other country. Despite the vast diversity in language, religion, caste, and culture, the Indian electoral process functions with precision, engaging citizens from all walks of life. The very fact that this system has operated successfully for decades, ensuring peaceful transfers of power, reinforces the credibility of India's democracy. This consistency contrasts with many nations where democratic institutions have struggled to survive, making India a beacon of resilience. Beyond the mechanics of elections, India's democratic model has broader implications for the global stage. It represents the idea that democracy is not limited to a certain region or culture. It can thrive in a developing country with enormous complexity. In doing so, India has become an example for emerging nations that are searching for governance systems capable of balancing tradition with modernity. The success of India's democracy sends a message that freedom, accountability, and representation are not luxuries but workable realities. even in the most diverse of societies. India's influence as a democracy also extends into its foreign policy. Global powers often turn to India as a partner because its democratic values align with the ideals of transparency, cooperation, and rule of law. Whether in organizations like the United Nations, the G20, or regional forums, India's voice carries weight because it speaks not only for itself, but also for democratic aspirations across the developing world. In dialogues about human rights, climate change, or global trade, India brings the perspective of a democratic nation representing 1/6 of humanity. This moral legitimacy adds strength to its diplomatic standing. At the same time, India's democracy is not without its challenges. Debates over inequality, social justice, and representation are ongoing, and the world watches closely how India navigates them. These challenges, however, do not weaken its democratic image. Rather, they highlight the openness of a system where debate and dissent are integral parts of progress. The ability to confront internal difficulties in a transparent manner is in itself a mark of democratic maturity. What makes India's democratic influence particularly powerful is the way it combines political freedom with global responsibility. It is respected for proving that democracy can thrive even under complex conditions, and it is feared by authoritarian regimes that see its success as a counter to their models of governance. In a world where the struggle between democratic and authoritarian values continues to shape geopolitics, India's presence as a thriving democracy ensures it remains a pivotal player in the balance of global power. India's cultural influence has become one of the most powerful and subtle tools through which it earns both respect and admiration across the world. Unlike military or economic power, cultural power works in softer ways. It captures hearts, shapes perceptions, and builds bridges between societies. India has long been known as a land of rich traditions, philosophies, and creativity, but in the modern era, this cultural heritage has taken on a new form, making the country a global trendsetter in lifestyle, entertainment, and spiritual practices. The spread of Indian culture is not limited by geography. It resonates across continents, creating a unique kind of influence that few nations can replicate. One of the most visible symbols of India's cultural reach is yoga. Once practiced mainly within the country as a spiritual discipline, yoga is now a global phenomenon embraced by millions as a path to physical health, mental balance, and inner peace. The fact that the United Nations declared June 21st as International Yoga Day reflects how deeply Indian traditions have become part of global consciousness. Through yoga, India projects not just a practice, but a philosophy of harmony, balance, and self-awareness, values that are universally appealing in an increasingly stressful and divided world. Alongside yoga, Indian cinema has played a massive role in expanding cultural influence. Bollywood, with its vibrant storytelling, colorful music, and emotional depth, has built an audience far beyond India's borders. From the Middle East to Africa, from Europe to the Americas, Indian films are watched, celebrated, and often imitated. They offer a window into Indian society while also delivering themes of love, family, struggle, and hope that resonate universally. The popularity of Indian music and dance, often tied to cinema, has further strengthened this connection, turning cultural exports into tools of diplomacy and goodwill. Cuisine is another aspect of India's soft power that has gained global recognition. Indian food, with its diversity of flavors, spices, and regional variations, has become a staple in many countries. Restaurants serving Indian dishes are found in nearly every major city in the world, introducing people to the richness of the country's culinary traditions. Food is often seen as an entry point into culture, and through its cuisine, India creates bonds of familiarity and appreciation with people from different backgrounds. Beyond entertainment and lifestyle, India's spiritual and philosophical contributions continue to inspire the world. Ancient systems such as Ayurveda have found renewed interest as people seek natural and holistic approaches to health. Indian literature, both classical and contemporary, is translated into numerous languages, and thinkers from India are recognized globally for their insights into philosophy, society, and politics. This blend of ancient wisdom and modern creativity showcases India as a nation deeply rooted in tradition yet forward, looking in its expression. What makes cultural influence powerful is that it operates without force or coercion. People willingly adopt yoga, listen to Indian music, watch Indian films, or try Indian food because they are drawn to it. This voluntary embrace creates respect, as it shows that India has something meaningful and enriching to offer the world. At the same time, this influence also brings a subtle kind of power, shaping the way people see India, building goodwill that often translates into stronger diplomatic and economic relationships. In the global arena, cultural soft power allows India to stand apart. While other nations may wield military might or economic leverage, India possesses the ability to inspire and connect. It is this ability to win hearts, not just battles, that makes the world respect India deeply and recognize the influence it holds in shaping the global cultural landscape. India's geopolitical role has grown into one of the most critical factors shaping how the world perceives the nation today. Situated at the crossroads of South Asia, with access to both the Indian Ocean and the Himalayan frontier, India's geography alone gives it immense strategic significance. But geography is only part of the story. What truly makes India stand out is how it has positioned itself in international affairs, as a balancing force, a voice for the global South, and a nation capable of influencing the direction of global politics. This unique position generates both respect and caution, as countries around the world recognize India's ability to tip the scales in matters of security, economy, and diplomacy. India's immediate neighborhood is one of the most complex and sensitive in the world. With China to the north, Pakistan to the west, and emerging nations like Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh around it, India is constantly engaged in regional diplomacy. Its ability to maintain stability in such an environment is itself a sign of strength. At the same time, India's rivalry with China, particularly along disputed borders and in influence across Asia, has made global powers view India as a counterbalance to Beijing. This perception amplifies India's role in international alliances and strategies, especially as the world grapples with shifts in power from the West to Asia. Beyond its regional setting, India has steadily built its global presence through participation in organizations such as the United Nations, BRICS, the G20, and the Quad Alliance alongside the United States, Japan, and Australia. By being part of multiple, and sometimes contrasting, groups, India demonstrates its ability to maintain strategic autonomy. It does not align blindly with any one bloc. Instead, it navigates international politics in a way that serves its national interests while also contributing to global discussions. This independent approach is respected by many countries, especially developing nations that look to India as a leader of the global South, capable of voicing their concerns on platforms dominated by wealthier powers. India's role in the Indian Ocean further cements its geopolitical importance. The Indian Navy plays a key part in securing vital shipping lanes that carry a large portion of the world's trade and energy supplies. This control over maritime routes gives India significant leverage, as stability in the region depends partly on its presence. With piracy, terrorism, and rising competition from other naval powers, India's ability to project influence across the ocean has become a critical element of global security calculations. Energy and economic partnerships also add to India's geopolitical weight. By building strong ties with the Middle East for energy security, strengthening trade with the West, and deepening cooperation with Africa and Southeast Asia, India has created a network of relationships that enhance its global reach. The fact that nations from different blocs, sometimes even adversarial ones, seek India's partnership is evidence of its growing centrality in world affairs. However, with influence comes responsibility, and this is where fear enters the equation. India's decisions in matters such as defense procurement, climate negotiations, and regional conflicts can alter the balance of power, forcing other nations to adapt. For instance, its stance on global crises or its ability to tilt alliances has the potential to either ease tensions or escalate them. This unpredictability, combined with India's sheer size and ambition, makes it a country that the world must watch carefully. Ultimately, India's geopolitical role is respected because it acts as both a stabilizer and a disruptor, depending on the context. Its presence ensures that no major global discussion, whether on security, trade, or climate, can move forward without considering its perspective. In an increasingly multipolar world, India is no longer just a participant, but a shaper of outcomes, commanding respect and evoking caution in equal measure.